When I was there, it was 4-year-olds to sixth grade, and that's when I was at EMS. I started when I was four in K1 in 1965, and then I went, of course, to 1973, graduating in sixth grade. I do have an older brother, 5 years older. His name's John, and he was there from 1960 to 1968, also K1 through 6. And but he was a bit of a star. He was a bit of a star pupil, especially in math and science. So when I got there, it was like, "Oh, you're great, you're John's brother," and it's like, "Yeah," and oh, he was a great student, and I'm like, ugh. My absolute favorite teacher was Mr. Kuhn in fourth grade. Basically because he was hilarious, first off, but also he used to uh, tell these stories, and I don't know how to. I don't remember. It was he created this character, Captain something, and his trusty, sidekick dog. They were superheroes, and the main hero would always get into some trouble, and he would expect his dog to help him out, and the dog would always press the wrong button or pull the wrong lever and end up killing Captain whatever through some gory fashion. And he would teach fourth graders, he would tell these stories about, and Captain whatever's juicy little body got smushed by the whatever. And we just thought it was hilarious. So he was one of the more favorite ones. Well, it was interesting. I remember that we all did music class, and we all did choir and sports, and we all kind of were involved in holiday skits. But I did take clarinet lessons when I was there for a couple of years. And Yeah, that's pretty much what I was involved with. I didn't, I was in choir, but singing came later. I mean, as an interest of mine. I didn't have a huge interest in music performance when I was a kid. I was much more interested in theatery stuff, acting and whatever. So the skits were always a lot of fun for me. Oh, a number of things actually, and in fact they relate to what I was just saying. I do remember one time. So I was taking clarinet lessons, and at one point, I don't know whether it was fifth grade or sixth grade, but we had a concert, and with the the orchestra. But I had never actually played in the orchestra. But what they had set up was a clarinet duet between me and another student. I can't remember. I think it might have been David Solo. It might have been Jamie Bone. I don't remember who it was exactly, but we started the duet, and I was just fine. And then I kind of like lost my place, and I just stopped. And I didn't go on afterwards. And then whoever the person was I was playing with was like, "Why did you stop?" It's like, "Oh, I lost my place and I couldn't find it again." If you were, uh, if you were acting up a little bit, you were, to give you a timeout, they would send you to the doll room. Now, this was supposedly rather embarrassing for boys to be sent to the doll room, but from, it's a time period, right? Um, but me, I loved it. I went in there and I just played with stuff, and it's fine. I was a little rambunctious, and then I went into the doll room and I played. So I had no problem with that kind of thing. Halloween skit when I was in second or third grade, playing a witch's black cat, and just getting into being a cat. We had a cat at home, and I just watched the cat, and then I went and I did that kind of thing. Very method at the time. And then in sixth grade, I played the mummy in a Halloween skit, all wrapped up in ace bandages and stuff like that. And I remember coming out of a cardboard sarcophagus and dragging my foot around and going around and making all the younger kids scream and laugh. So performance was kind of meant to be for me in terms of that theatrical side of things. We graduated sixth grade. So middle school was Dwight Englewood School, which is where a lot of us went right after. And then after that, my parents started to have problems, and they ultimately ended up divorced. And so they sent me away to a boarding school in order to sort of be out of the way of all the emotional stuff that went on. And that was Lawrenceville Preparatory School in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, down by Princeton. That was an excellent experience. Then I went to, from there, my mother had to leave. We had to leave, get away from my dad at that point. And so we went down to Florida, to St. Petersburg, Florida. She became a curator at the Museum of Fine Arts there. And I went to Shorecrest Preparatory School for the rest of my high school. Then when I went to college, since I was in Florida, I went to Florida State University for my bachelor's degree in music. It was an excellent, excellent music program. And then I went from there to the New England Conservatory of Music for my master's studies. And after that, I went and I did career things, singing in places around the United States and ultimately in New York a little bit on a small level, not the big houses. And then some things happened, and I decided to change my career direction towards teaching. And I went back to school for my doctorate. And I got my wife comes from this region, so we decided to move to Seattle. And I got into University of Washington here in their School of Music, and got my doctorate, my Doctor of Musical Arts from the University of Washington. I came to fall in love with opera singing, but when I started, I had no idea. Um, uh, I didn't even know that I could sing until I was in high school. And my piano teacher kind of discovered that because I was taking piano and she tested my ear and she basically said, here, follow these notes. And she played all of these, some scales and some things like that. I was already, by then I'm 14, whatever, my voice had changed. I'm already a bass. And she's playing the piano. And I guess what I'm doing is I'm matching the pitches really, really well. And she's playing complicated phrases, and I'm able to follow them along just fine, even though they're way down low. And so she goes, and she goes out into the hallway, and she brings in this gentleman, and she says, listen to this. And then she plays all this sort of stuff, and he goes, what are you doing? Noontime, and I said, I'm usually having my lunch period. Well, not next quarter. You're coming and singing in the choir. So that's when I started singing in high school. But at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to learn how to sing better. So when I went to college, I just auditioned for the voice department, not knowing that was particularly unusual. I just wanted to learn how to sing better. And so I auditioned, and I got into the performance program as a freshman, one of two people that got in that year. And it was a bit of struggle because I really didn't know what the heck I was doing. But Florida State had an open audition policy for the operas. So every quarter, you could just go and sing for the opera department, and then they would either cast you or not. And I got cast my first year that I did that. And so I started singing operas at the school when I was, 18, 19 years old. And I didn't even know really what opera was. I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't really know. I just liked performing and I liked singing. So I just did that because it was there. I didn't actually fall in love with opera until I was at an opera apprenticeship program in Des Moines, Iowa, the Des Moines Metro Opera. They would have a summer program for young artists. And we were also acting as the chorus to operas in this wonderful Puccini opera called Turandot. A lot of people are familiar with the aria, the aria that ends with Vincero, Vincero. That thing you hear in X Factor and whatever. That's where that aria comes from. And that opera, I was doing that, and I was in the chorus, and there's this beautiful aria being sung by the soprano, and I'm just sitting there listening to that as part of the chorus, and I'm going, okay, I could do this for the rest of my life. I could just be involved with this whole thing in opera for the rest of my life. And that was actually when I was 27 years old. So it took quite a while for me to really fall in love with opera as a career. When I was a kid, growing up in the, pretty much so coming into my awareness of things in the, late 60s and then through the 70s, my favorite folks were like the Beatles and Black Sabbath and The Who and Led Zeppelin. And actually, my most favorite band was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And what I wasn't aware of at the time was that they were borrowing a lot of stuff from classical music. Then, so they were a progressive rock group, but they were borrowing a lot from classical music. And I really didn't realize how much I liked classical music, except when I found out, my mother was like listening to something and said, "Oh, I have a record of that in the classical, the actual classical orchestration." And I would, listen to it and go, "My gosh, that's what I really like." I just kind of got into classical music again through the back door, through this kind of stuff from the rock. Alexander Kipnis, Nikolai Gyarov, Cesare Siepi, Norman Triegel, Ivan Petrov. But I also really liked the great singers, sopranos and tenors as well. Franco Corelli, a great dramatic tenor, and then of course Luciano Pavarotti. He's a great tenor for a long time. And composers, I love Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. I also like the Russians, Mussorgsky, Stravinsky, Prokofiev. That's kind of become a specialty of mine. And then Claude Debussy. Those are my real favorite composers in the classical realm. And as a career, it's kind of that comes later, really. My teacher at Florida State, Roy Delp, he passed away a little while ago. He always encouraged me to go perform. Not a lot of the voice teachers at Florida State encourage their freshmen to go audition for the opera. They said, don't do that. Just stay in the studio, and we'll work it out. And then I'll let you know when you should audition for the opera, so you can get a big, great role. My voice teacher was like, no, just go. You get it or you don't get it. Don't worry about it. Get on the stage and do it. So I think that was very important. A graduate student, actually, friend of mine, Pat Rice, he was this southern boy from Alabama, and we were in the same studio, but also in the same apartment complex. And he had this great stereo system, and every once in a while, and he's the one who actually introduced me to the great singers of opera, like Leontine Price, like Joan Sutherland, like Pavarotti, like Alexander Kipnis and Siepi and all those people. He would say, "Come on down, boy. I want you to hear this. Come on, let me hear it. Let me put this on for you." And he would just play opera singers like they were sports heroes. I mean, he would just like, listen to that high note, listen to that low note. Man, can't you look at that line? Just listen to that line. I mean, he was so enthusiastic. So he actually was really important for my understanding much more about opera. And then, of course, when I got to real coaches, people like John Moriarty and my teacher at UW, Julian Patrick, these are people who were, in the business. They are teaching, they are coaching, and they're really, they're the ones that are really giving me my technique, not only vocal technique, but musical technique and how to apply it for a career. So Moriarty was very important to me. John Moriarty is a very big name in opera training. He was a big guy at the New England Conservatory. Genius, absolute genius coach. And really a lot of my musicality comes from that. And another fellow who was my coach in undergraduate school, Stephen Davis, really gave me my musicianship. So that's really what's been important. Sure. Now, as a soloist, so there's only so many things for low bass, but there are some pretty famous roles, and one of them is a role called Sarastro from Mozart's The Magic Flute. In German, it's Die Zauberflöte, and so the Magic Flute was an important opera for me, and it was actually there's an opera aria from that by Sarastro that goes from the highest note is middle C, and then it goes all the way down to the low F, about an octave and a fifth lower. But it's relatively narrow range, but it's right where my voice worked when I was a young singer. And so the first time that somebody assigned me that aria to sing, it actually was in late high school. It was when I was a senior in high school. I almost cried because it's like, oh my gosh, there's actually something there for me to sing. Because everything else, musicals are all too high. Everything is just seems very high. And so when I saw that role as a young singer, it was very important to me because it sits absolutely right in where my voice works best. So Sarastro and the Magic Flute. There's the role of the music teacher in Rossini's Barbara of Seville. There's Bartolo, the lawyer in Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. The main character of Don Pasquale by Donizetti. That's a great role. I love doing that. Of course, Osmine. I sent you that little clip. That's from Abduction from the Seraglio by Mozart. That's one of the widest ranged and with the lowest notes ever written is in that opera, and that's a fun one to do. There's Spadafucile in Verdi's Rigoletto. There is the Prince, Gremin in Eugene Onegin. And then, and actually one of the first things I ever sang was Balthazar in Amal and the Night Visitors. Amal and the Night Visitors was written by a man named Giancarlo Menotti for television. And it actually was on TV during the 50s every Christmas. And it's about a little crippled shepherd boy who the three wise men come and stay overnight at his home, and then he offers up his crutch in the end to the kings to give to the Christ child in case he needs it. And because of his generosity and love, there's a miracle, and the boy is made to walk. And the part of Balthazar is just one of the kings, and he's the bass in that. Yeah, Seattle Opera as a chorus since 2003. I've also done a few small roles with them, and then I've sung most of my solo work in the area has been with Tacoma Opera, which is down south of us about 45 minutes. But they're the small opera company. They're the biggest regional opera company in Seattle. In the Seattle area, in the Puget Sound region, next to, of course, Seattle Opera, which is 10 times bigger. Failure is a consistent part of life. I've made a lot of mistakes and failed a lot in my life so far, and probably will continue to. So making mistakes and failing does not mean that you're a bad person or a loser, even if it happens a lot. Without these, you can't grow. Even the apple tree has to drop all its leaves and be scraggly and dead looking for a while in order to bloom with beautiful flowers and bear sweet, luscious fruit. So go for it, and go for it fearlessly.